everyone, and welcome to the Maybe Running Will Help podcast. Today, we're joined with Sepideh Saremi. Did I mess that up again?
Oh, you did great. That was great.
What do your clients call you?
Sep or Sepi. Yeah, a lot of
Sep
clients
or
call me Sep
Sepi?
or Sepi.
I
That's
love
right.
that. So, you are a psychotherapist, an executive coach and advisor, and the founder of Run, Walk, Talk.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I have to tell you how I found you. It was doing a podcast with a psychologist about mind chatter and kind of how we get in our heads before races. And we
Mhm.
just happened to get on the subject of running as therapy. And I was kind of asking more about should we be cautious as using running, in replace of therapy. And he was
Mhm.
like, actually, there's this great book called Running is My Therapy,
Yeah.
which I immediately ordered. And he's
Yeah.
like, there's all kinds of research that shows that, running and walking and movement actually changes your brain chemistry. And
Mhm.
so it can be like helpful. I wanted to talk to you. This is obviously what you do. So,
Mhm.
how you use it, how other people can use it, and, maybe use it in combination with therapy. But I guess first, tell us what you do. What do you do like on a day to day basis?
So my work is combining movement with psychotherapy. And primarily I do that running and walking with my clients, with my therapy clients at the beach. So that's kind of part of my
Oh,
practice. The other part of it is I do like a lot of business consulting, coaching around the psychology of being an entrepreneur. And that's pretty
hmm,
much separate.
okay.
Although some of my therapy clients are also entrepreneurs, and that's why they come and see me. And so I've been doing that for doing Run Walk Talk since about 2017. I've been walking with clients since about 2012. So before
Oh,
I got
wow.
licensed. And yeah, so I've been doing this for a little while now. And mostly when I'm working with my therapy patients, I'm mostly working with them around depression, anxiety, life changes, adjustments, just anything that people come in that they're having a hard time with, kind of the whole gamut. And I've worked with people all across sort of like the scale of severity of mental health, not in private
Oh,
practice,
wow.
but I worked previously in community mental health, like all the way from like very intense schizophrenia and very severe depression, all the way to like, now I'm working with people who are what we call very high functioning. So they're business owners and leaders and doing pretty well, except maybe they've like kind of one or two little things that they want to work through. So what I've been very fortunate to experience is looking at and working with movement for people
Hmm.
with all different sort of levels of functioning and levels of illness and distress, and have found it incredibly helpful for my patients, my therapy patients, like pretty much across the board.
That's amazing. And also that you're doing it at the beach, I feel like there's like a third factor there.
For sure. Yeah, there's actually a ton of research around that too. If you've got a I always say like use what you got, So if
Mhm.
you have access to treadmills, fine, do that. A run is still a run. It's still going to help you. But if you can do it in nature, it's just fantastic. Like so much
Yeah.
better for you in terms of your mental health. Because we're meant to be in nature. We're not meant to be inside all the time.
I love what I call forest bath,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is just walking in the woods. It's so therapeutic.
It is. And the research, all the data will support you in that for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are you a runner or walker, or like how did you get into this?
I came at running relatively late. I was in my mid 20s, and I was always one of those people. I had a lot of early childhood trauma, and I was very
Hmm.
disconnected from my body, and I did not like exercise. Like just kind of my body was just something that carried my brain around. Like I did not have a connection to it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so sometime in my mid 20s, I got into jumping rope because that was the one thing that I actually really liked to do as a kid. So I would walk to the park and I would jump rope and then I would walk home. And one day
Hmm.
I forgot my rope and I was like, well, I walked to the park and I realized like I don't have my jump rope. And I was like, well, why
Yeah.
don't I just like run around the park a couple times? And I did it and was like, hey, I kind of like that,
Mhm.
which is a big shock because, I feel like my only experiences with running in the past have been being forced to run, like in PE,
Yeah. Yep.
like pretty
Hmm.
negative, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like, oh, I'm a bad runner. I'm bad at this. And then I just got hooked. And it just happened that right around the time that I started running, I was also in therapy
Hmm.
separately, right? And so I remember thinking like, oh, it'd be really cool if like I could combine these things. I wish I could like do my therapy session while I'm running because the running feels
It's
so
a real
good.
time saver.
Yeah, and also therapy is really hard. Like therapy is a hard thing to do. It's very vulnerable and you're not talking about happy things typically.
Mhm,
And so I felt like it'd be really nice if I could combine these like this good feeling of running with talking about these difficult things. And that's where the seed was planted. And the following year, I was already on the path to become a therapist. And the following year I was at UCLA starting my master's in social welfare program. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And I basically just like worked that into my education. I looked at a lot of the research and realized, hey, there's all of this good research for movement for mental health, but I'm not seeing it in practice really
mhm.
anywhere. Like, why aren't we doing this? We talk so much about evidence-based practice in as therapists and like, well, here's the evidence, but where's the practice? And so then I realized like, oh, I can probably do something about that. And so when I graduated, it just kind of evolved into my life and has kind of become my cause. So I'm a big advocate
Yeah,
for it and I've talked a lot about it, and now I'm training other therapists in how to do it, which has been
yeah.
really exciting. So Run Walk Talk is a certification program now. A lot of my time is going to that, and I think about 50 people have gone through the program, and they're
Mhm.
in more than 20 states and Puerto Rico and Switzerland and Australia. So it's really
I saw that.
exciting.
That's crazy. It
Yeah.
really has grown. Wow. Something interesting that I was thinking about as you were saying that is when you go on a run with somebody, like a running group or something, I
Mhm.
feel like we have a tendency to really open up on a run and say things that we would not say in like a normal conversation. And I remember asking someone else about this. And now I'm really excited to ask you because they were kind of like, I don't know, but that's so true. Like, why are we so much more available like when we're running?
That's such a good question. And I think there's a few different reasons. One is that we're not making eye contact. And you would
Mhm.
actually think that it'd be opposite, that when we're making eye contact, that it's more intimate and maybe we open up more. But actually, when we're not making eye contact, we're not really seeing the other person's reactions and we're not
Oh,
scanning them.
right.
And if we're
Yes.
talking about something vulnerable that maybe we have shame around or we're not secure about, the way that we look at another person, we're going to be scanning for things that confirm our own shame, right?
So true.
And so if I'm telling you, Nikki, like a bunch of stuff about myself that I'm like, I don't feel very proud about this part of myself and I don't see your face, it's almost like a confessional, right? Like for Catholics,
Yeah.
where you don't
Yeah.
look at the priest when you're doing that.
Mm-mm.
You don't see the priest's face when you're doing that. And so you can just speak freely. That's one piece of it. The other piece is that when we're moving our bodies forward through space, like when we're running or walking or on a bicycle, the parts of our brain that light up when we're anxious, those naturally get quieter.
Oh
So
my God.
we are in a much better state to be able to connect with another human being because we're naturally just calmer. So we feel
Yeah.
better and then we're not scanning them for how they're reacting or how they're judging us. And so the words flow.
That is so it's so like, I'm like, this is so true because I do get more nervous when I'm talking, like, I sometimes feel like I have a little bit of social anxiety, and when I start talking and somebody, like, is really paying attention to me, like, looking at me, I, like, sometimes freeze and my mind goes
Mhm.
blank, but on a run, that doesn't happen, and
Yeah.
also, like, the thing where you feel so much calmer, like, I'm not, like, sitting there, like, stewing in my thoughts or, like, "What are they thinking?" Like, whatever, it's like all that does just feel like it, like, my brain is a little bit clearer and there's not
Mhm.
so many like thoughts coming at me all at once. And so
Mhm.
I just am so much more myself when I'm talking on a run. Like I am so surprised at who I am when I'm running. So that's so interesting.
There's so much more freedom in it, right? And there's also, I think, this like third thing, which is when you're running, it's pretty cognitively taxing. Like your brain is actually doing a lot of work and coordinating your body, right? And
Mhm.
so you don't have a lot of time to be having all those sort of like little, I call them like
Yeah.
garbage thoughts, of like,
Mhm.
this person doesn't like me or I'm a
Yeah.
loser, or whatever it is that
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
when you
For
have any
sure.
sort of anxiety about yourself in the context of relationship or other people, like your brain literally does not have the space to do that then. And so you're really freed from that. And it's really just like what's coming out of your mouth and then keeping your feet moving and keeping all those processes coordinated. Your body's working hard to do that. So you
Yeah.
don't have space for it. And so you're free, which is lovely.
Is there a
Mhm.
benefit when we're just running by ourselves, like in a therapeutic way, if we're not working with a therapist, say?
does. Yeah. So I always say like running is therapeutic, but it's not necessarily therapy, but it's still
Mm,
therapeutic,
mhm.
right? Like
Okay.
therapy, I think of as it's a very relational process. So it's like really happening between you and the therapist, and they're bringing a particular kind of listening, a particular kind of guidance to you as a
Mhm.
person, and a particular kind of care. But running itself is extremely therapeutic because it's giving your body all of the same things that movement gives you, which is you are more creative, you're more
Mm,
relaxed. All the same kind of thoughts that would maybe be jumbling you up when you're not moving are
yeah.
you free of. And so in and of itself, yeah, absolutely. It's extremely therapeutic. I always think too about like one of the things that what I talk about when I'm training therapists is this idea of a movement story. So, and we talk about like run, walk, talk in particular on three different levels. This idea of
Mm,
like a method, right? So like how many miles you're going and all of that. This idea of movement as a modulator, so, what it's doing to your body and your nervous system and your brain. And then this third layer of metaphor, which is like, what is the story that you have about yourself as a runner, about running? And that's the layer that I think that we don't really like in running communities. We maybe talk about it a little bit, but not a I don't think we really talk about it as much and give it as much credit as it deserves, because I think if you're really intentional and conscious about the way that you run and curious about how you engage with your running practice, it can give you a lot of insights into who you are as a person. And then
oh.
you can start to play with that and change who you are as a person.
Oh my god, can you tell me more about that? Give me an example, help. Give me
So I don't know a lot about your running journey or process, but like for me, because I didn't have a relationship to running, because I came to it a little bit later, like in my mid 20s, and I was already kind of on the process of trying to understand myself. Looking back on it now, I kind of see my relationship to movement as like each different way that I move, and I do a lot of different forms of movement now, not just running. Running is like probably the least that I do. I do lots of other things.
Mhm.
They're all kind of these gateways to me experiencing my body in a different way, experiencing myself in a different way, accessing different forms of power, different forms of strength, like literally and
Mm,
also figuratively, right? So running is a lot about endurance, about stamina, about
mhm.
understanding the difference between discomfort and danger, right? Like
Oh,
when
yeah.
is something that is uncomfortable in your body, when do you need to stop? When do you need to push through? And I think that it created a lot of room in other parts of me. Like it developed other parts of me that as a woman in my like mid 20s, I really needed, right?
Yeah.
So the same kind of lessons that you have there, you can transfer over into other areas of your life. It also, I remember when I was running, I'm a person who's very historically pretty high achieving, very hard on myself. I could be like outrageously competitive, and
Yeah.
racing is a big part of running. And I have run one race, and it was like a 5K on the beach with like glow sticks. It was like not like a serious, like quote unquote
Yeah.
race. And I remember doing it and thinking like, I don't like this. Like
Mm,
I don't like the corral at the beginning, where you're like, I'm like, I don't like this. Um,
okay.
and I realized like I don't have to run the way that I do the rest of my life, or the way that I do
Oh.
the rest of my life. And I think
Mm,
sometimes runners will, if they're not conscious or aware, they'll kind of copy paste how they do everything into their running. And then
mm,
sometimes that works and that's great and they should do that. But sometimes it doesn't. And for me, I needed running to be something different than
yeah.
the intensity that I brought to everything else. So I always joke that I'm like a lower R runner, right? Like very recreational, and it's very much for my mental health. So I don't know if that explains it. This idea of like movement is
Well,
more.
yeah, I think I do am, like, catching on to, like, what you're saying because like, when you talked about the story that you tell yourself about running, but if you think about how it relates to the story that you tell yourself about yourself in general, you can learn a lot. A couple things came up for me, like, I feel like I first started running as more of, like, punishment
Uh-huh.
to myself, and
Hmm.
then it transitioned to something where it made me feel good about myself. So at first didn't feel good about myself and I used running as punishment. Then it actually became the thing that made me feel good and proud of myself. And then
Hmm.
there's all kind of complications that can get into with that. But the other thing I see is road runners, they're very competitive, very like time, very, like all about PR. But then
Hmm.
when you look at the trail side, it's a lot just just finishing, which is a very different story, right? Like you're talking about, it's a very different way to approach running.
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts about that?
I think that's really interesting, and I wonder if part of the reason that trail runners are more, I wouldn't say they're more chill, but they're maybe more realistic about it, is that they get those benefits of nature in a way that maybe road
Cool.
runners don't. Like if you're running, I don't know, I think it gives you perspective. And there's also this thing that happens when you're in nature called soft fascination, where you're just more relaxed. Versus if you're running in an urban environment on the road, and there's cars
Hmm.
or buildings and whatever, your nervous system doesn't totally relax in the way that
Yeah.
trail run can give you. There's a particular vigilance, I think, that's always on for a road runner. I think that I would love for more people to have that feeling that trail runners have, because I think it's
Yes.
ultimately healthier.
Yes.
And I think the obsession with PRs and like
Mm.
time, and it's an interesting thing to look at. I'm always
Mm.
curious about, is the way that you're moving making your life bigger or making it smaller? Right.
Oh,
And it's actually an addiction question, right? Like the whatever behavior you're engaging in, is it making your life bigger or smaller? Like, is it creating more opportunity and more like
wow.
grace and more ease for you and more joy? Or is it actually making your ability to have pleasure more narrow? And I think sometimes runners, we can get in a very strange place with our running, where if we don't do an exact, like, I do very low miles. I'll do like 3 to 5 miles. And when I first started
Mm.
running, it was like if I didn't do the point one of, like, I would do like a 5K every day. It was like
Yeah.
3.1. If I didn't do that point one, it didn't count. Like it just didn't count. Why are we so rigid? Like, who cares? I think we can get that way. And I think that often predates the running. Like the running doesn't turn us
Hmm.
into that, but we're kind of like enacting it or playing it out through the running. And if we have the capacity to be curious about, how am I engaging with this
Yeah.
activity, it can be very rich in terms of our self-awareness.
This is fascinating. There are a lot of people in the running community that are recovering addicts.
Yeah.
So, what's the science behind that?
I don't know the data. I do know that it's pretty helpful, and there are definitely organizations that are just for recovering addicts. And I'm a
Yeah.
big proponent of this idea of harm reduction, which is like, I would rather you be addicted to running than be addicted to heroin,
Right. Right.
or whatever. I think that it's a much healthier obsession, much more positive.
Yeah.
But I bet those people get injured more.
Mm.
That would be my guess,
Yeah.
because there's a quality of running that can be very dissociative, like where you
Mm.
are not actually paying attention to your body. You're just kind of getting on autopilot in a way that I think if you have addiction history or trauma or any sort of like history where you've dissociated a lot just to like cope,
Mhm.
I think that can come up. So
That's crazy. Yeah. It's kind of one of our skills that you can dissociate, and
yeah.
that makes you a good endurance runner.
Yes, but I'm also like privy to more injury, I think. When somebody has a history of having a lot of injury, I'm always really curious about how actually tuned in they are to what's going on with their body, and then how responsive are they? Are they just
Mm.
like ignoring and ignoring and ignoring signals over and over again? And look, that's a way to do it. And if you're a performance athlete, sometimes like when you're in a race, like you got to do it. But I think they often do it in training too. I think this the recovery piece of it is not as available to them.
Yep. That's very true. How are people usually finding you?
Website, podcasts, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I've been very fortunate to have a lot of press in the past, so
Yeah.
people see me that way. Right now, frankly, my focus is less on seeing individuals and more on getting the approach out into the world. So I'm
Right.
definitely interfacing a lot more with press, podcasts, with therapists, and doing
Mhm.
training. But people have found me mostly through online and through press.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are they looking specifically for run, walk, talk therapy when they come to like a practitioner?
Sometimes they're looking for that, and sometimes they happen to find a practitioner, and we've got like more than 40 of them now, but sometimes they happen to find that person, and because of the running, they're willing to come and
Oh,
engage.
wow.
So
Yeah.
we're a good way into therapy for people who are sort of reluctant to do therapy in any other way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people that are like reluctant to sit still and
Absolutely.
need to move. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
When you're doing the training with practitioners, what are you teaching? Like, what's the approach to the therapy?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a 6-part training. Right now we've got a level 1. And so I talk them through the research around running and movement for therapy and for mental health. So they get all of that background. And then we talk about different ways to set it up. And we talk about sort of movement as method. So therapists do it all sorts of different ways. A lot of us will do like the classic, and I do this, the 50-minute chunks of time. So
Mm.
you have a particular structure for that. And we talk through all of the sort of like obstacles, even like what to wear and what to like, what
Oh,
who needs water, how do you with bathrooms, like all the kind of things that you don't have to worry about when you're working in an office space as a therapist. And the
right.
second part is movement as modulator, which is all the nervous system and brain stuff. And then how do we also like we have a lot of training as therapists in how to help people with change. How do we integrate, like, for instance, like cognitive behavioral therapy or EMDR or other forms of treatment that a lot of us are trained in? How do we do that in a running, walking session? And then the third part is this movement as metaphor. What's the story here? Like,
Mhm.
how is this person using their body in their life? And then what do they actually need? Like, how can we help them use their body to change that story? Those are the kind of the
Okay.
three levels. Yeah.
Talking to clients about it, like, is it the same, like, you're telling them the reason behind it and all that, or how does that work?
Honestly, most people really just want to go for a walk or a run.
Mhm. Okay.
They're just
Alright.
excited to do it in a different way, and
Yeah.
I will often, like, offer up, like, "Do you have any questions about it? Or any concerns about it?" We're often talking about, issues of confidentiality, like, what happens if we
Mm.
run into somebody that we know, right? Like, that
Huh.
I know, that they know, how are we gonna handle that? What kind of things are they comfortable talking about outdoors as
Mm.
opposed to in an office space or on a Zoom call? So we're working out all of those things in advance, and for the most part, some people care about the science of it. Most people
Mhm.
just feel better. And so
Yeah.
they're not really getting into the nitty-gritty of the data as much. That's more for the therapists. But
Yeah.
of course, because we're all trained, like all the Run Walk Talk therapists are trained, we can always talk about that too. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to share about what you do?
Just so passionate about it. Like I just feel like we have a default of doing therapy seated, and I would like the default to be movement. And
Mm.
seated is an option, but we're not made to sit. And
Yeah.
most of us are living now lives where we sit indoors in artificial light. Oftentimes the light's ugly, like fluorescent light,
Yeah.
like a typical sort of cubicle farm scenario or like sitting in a home office. Like that's not good for anyone,
Yeah.
hours and hours of that. And it's also not good for therapists. And so, what I really like about Run Walk Talk is that it's good for the therapist, it's good for the client, it's really good for the therapeutic process. It's hitting so many different marks of, the environmental, like the ecotherapy, using the
Yeah.
environment, using the body, and then also delivering therapy in a way that's much more appealing and accessible. And I feel like that should be the default. And that's what's really driving me is to I would love for so many times now I hear for the last however long it's been, decade or so that I've been doing this, I hear, "Oh wow, that's such a cool idea. Run, walk, talk, that's such a cool idea. I've never heard of that before." And my
Mhm.
dream is to say what I do and have people say, my therapist does that," or
Yeah.
"I've heard of that," right? I want it to be normal, and I think it's the future. I also think that in an age of AI,
Mhm.
anyone can go to an AI and ask it for advice. And some of these models have been, they've read every therapist book there is, right? And so they can kind of like give you a lot of advice. Like therapy isn't actually about advice, it's about having a relationship that helps you transform yourself. And
Mm.
I think more and more that's going to be delivered in person. And it's going to involve me as a therapist lending my client, my patient, my nervous system, like supporting in that way. It's like with my body and moving together, moving forward together. So I think it's a beautiful metaphor
Yeah.
and it's borne out
Mhm.
in all this research. So I just gave you such a long answer, but I think I'm
No,
passionate
that's great.
about all of it. And it all makes
Yeah.
sense to me. And I think it
Mhm.
makes sense to most people. So it
Yep.
needs to be everywhere.
I agree. Somatic therapy, is that related?
Uh, so somatic therapy is kind of like an umbrella term because somatic means
Okay.
body.
Okay.
Body based. And so somatic therapy basically looks at the nervous system.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, the somatic therapies that people are getting in like a typical psychotherapy dynamic is indoors, and it's looking at very subtle shifts in your body. And that's very
Mm,
important. But for a client who's kind of therapy averse,
mhm,
it's kind of a tall order. Like for me, and for instance, like I was very therapy averse. It was really
mhm,
hard for me to tolerate somatic experiencing and EMDR, which are two sort of
okay.
nervous system approaches. And I needed to start outside. and
Yeah.
and so there are a lot of clients like that. And so I feel like we need all of it. We need all of it.
What's EMDR? I'm
Oh,
blanking.
EMDR, yeah. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it was
Okay.
created by a therapist named Francine Shapiro. And what it does is it uses uh, eye movements to help you resolve trauma.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Huh.
pretty wild. You should definitely look it up. But
Yeah.
what's interesting though, Nikki, about that is that
Okay.
EMDR was discovered while Francine Shapiro was on a walk.
No
So
way.
what we're
Huh.
doing essentially with Run Walk Talk is taking that original inspiration and just moving it back outdoors, right? Because she was noticing
Wow.
when I'm moving forward, my eyes are moving. Like your eyes will do these micro movements as you move forward
Yeah.
through space. Like you're not really paying attention, but you're always scanning the horizon. And so
Right.
talking about this like very activating material, like traumatic material, for instance, those
Yeah.
little micro movements, we don't know exactly how it works, right? They call it bilateral stimulation. It's like both sides of your brain, both sides of your body are working at the same time. So we don't know exactly how it works. But one theory is that you're occupied enough, like your working memory is occupied enough that you're not going to get flooded by like distressing memories. And so you can stay
Mm.
in and stay present. So you're less likely to dissociate or to like burst into tears or kind of lose the thread of the story, and then you
Okay.
have more control over that material, and you can have better ability to kind of resolve it.
So is the run, walk, talk all like basically it's all of that? Is it the somatic and the EMDR and like all of it in one?
It's not technically EMDR because EMDR is its own. It's got a protocol, but it definitely uses those same principles, right? It's like using
Yeah.
those same principles. And what's interesting and like I think really cool about about Run Walk Talk is that it's not a protocol. It's like a way of thinking as a
Mhm.
therapist and a way of integrating that borrows and uses like kind of existing theory and existing science. And we're actually in the process now of like making that a little bit more formalized and potentially hopefully being able to publish our own sort of methodology around it so that it becomes more available and it's in part of the literature. But
Yeah.
I'm not a protocol based therapist at all. And so it's more flexible than some of these other approaches because
Okay.
these are like, if when you do EMDR, it's like it's a very strict kind of protocol. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you started in 2017. What has changed since you started?
Ooh, what a good question. For Run Walk, what was interesting was COVID happened. And
Yes, I
so
know. Thinking that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like before COVID.
yeah, I know. And COVID changed all of us and it kind of made
Yes.
us weird, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of,
Yes. It was
it,
the
ma-
weird times. Yes.
it opened some things up because I think like therapists then learned how to do this, like what we're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
How do you have a therapeutic conversation on a video screen where you can just see somebody's head and shoulders, basically, which is its own weirdness and kind of game.
Hmm.
But I think now we're going to move in the other direction again. I think it's going to be all about like, I think some people will still continue to do this for convenience, but I think
Hmm.
clinical therapy is going to be in person. I think it's going to be like a lot of body based. I think that's going to be really important. And I think personally for me, I ran more before when
Hmm.
COVID happened, I started jumping rope again because I couldn't run masked. It was like it made me feel
Yeah.
I got back to that sort of childhood form of movement
Hmm.
and became an incredible jump roper, if I do say so myself.
I need to see this. I need to see these
For
moves.
like a half hour, I can go. I don't do a lot of tricks, but I could just go and go. And definitely running, I realized was like my gateway drug. And so
Mm.
now, if I had done the training, if I had created the training in 2017, it would look very different than it looks now because I'm much more agnostic about, even though it's called Run Walk Talk, we're
Yeah.
talking about movement in general. So
Mm.
I I have clinicians that are getting trained who are yoga teachers, who are weightlifters. Like we're all thinking about what's going on in the human body. How does it affect our mental health? How can we use this as practitioners to support the relationship building with our with our clients and how can we better help them understand like what they're doing with their body so they can be really intentional about that and support their own growth. So I think that changed.
Oh my gosh, every time you say something, I'm like, "Oh my god," I totally get that because, like, I feel like my, strength and conditioning coach is sometimes I feel like we have therapy sessions, we talk about things that I would talk about in therapy. It's
Yes.
so cool, like, it's like, all the stuff that you're doing, people are already doing it, just not with professionals, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
we're doing our own little therapy sessions in our running groups and with our strength trainers, and
Yes. And imagine, like, I mean, that see how effective that is, and then imagine if that's a trained mental
I
health
can't. I'm like,
professional, like,
that would be amazing.
how much more you get, right?
Yeah.
Because then you've got, like, particular goals. I mean, this is, like it's such a good way to build a relationship is to move with someone. That's why everybody kind of, like, loves their coaches so much, right? Is because 'cause you're,
Mhm.
like, vulnerable and open, and you're growing with them, and it's so beautiful.
Yes.
And your running partners, they see you at your worst, and they still
Yes.
are with you, right? And then imagine that that person is a trained mental health practitioner who is like helping you with goals that you have for your life that transcend the body, right? They're like about relationships and your children and your career. And so it's just so, so powerful.
It is. That would be awesome. That is like a dream, honestly. What are the qualifications for somebody to get trained in your program?
So we are going to be doing training again starting in at the end of the summer, I believe. And we've done 4 cohorts, but this when it relaunches, it'll be more of a self-study model for the level 1. But the people who go through our program should be either on the path to or a fully licensed therapist. So we
Okay.
do train students, like graduate students, people who are pre-licensed and then people who are licensed. And then if they are coaches, so sometimes we'll also train people who are like counselors, like school counselors. Basically, I need them to
Mm,
have a background already in training, like serious training in human behavior change, because
okay.
this doesn't teach you that. This teaches
Right.
you to use running and walking to support that. So if you
Okay.
don't have the human behavior change piece, you're going to be missing a lot in terms of like being able to help people using this approach. So our training program is really geared towards trained or people who are in training to become mental health professionals or people who are professionally certified coaches, like personal coaches or executive coaches that have a like a serious certification.
Is there anything that I didn't ask that people usually want to know about when they hear what you do?
I think you have covered it all.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, I'm so excited. Like I this is amazing. I mean, I was excited before you told me about it, but the stuff that you said just makes it make so much sense. And I'm like, I'm already like doing this. I just need the person to be a professional and then I'd be set.
Where are
Uh,
you, Nikki? What state are you in?
Maryland,
Maryland.
which I'm looking we have one in Maryland, but in Rockville, which is a little bit further
Okay.
from me then. But you're here, you're everywhere. If people are interested in learning more, working with a practitioner, they can go to runwalktalk.com. Very easy right there. And then you have
Yeah.
a whole directory
Yeah.
for people to find a practitioner. Is
Mhm.
there anywhere else we should go to learn more? Anywhere else you want to point us?
I'm not a great Instagrammer, but the handle's Run Walk Talk. So if you want to follow there. So especially for people who are interested in getting trained, the best way to get updates about that is to go to runwalktalk.com and sign up for the email newsletter. And then usually those people get sort of first dips to get into the
Oh,
training. And then a couple days later, I post it on Instagram. So that'll be coming later this summer. And I'm very excited to welcome a fresh crop of people to get trained. And we'll keep expanding this and hopefully get more
yes.
people running and walking and feeling better and moving forward
I
in their
love
lives.
that. Do you have a newsletter for us regular people?
I'm so bad.
Sorry to put you on the spot. I'm like, I want to read more.
I am gonna do I am gonna be doing more of that. So you can the best way is to sign up for the newsletter and then you'll get whatever you'll get it all.
Awesome.
Yeah. We don't post nearly as much as we should, but that's gonna change soon. So
Well, you're very busy. I mean, this is a growing thing that you're very passionate about. We
yeah.
need to get it out there. So I'm excited to be able to share it with our audience.
Thank
And
you. You,
thank you so
Nikki.
much for your time. I
Oh, it's
appreciate
been
it.
so delightful to talk to you. Wonderful interviewers. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to stay in touch with you. And yeah, thank you for what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you.